Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Kid Dracula. In the last one we started off the game and now we're heading into Stage 3. This is Attack of the Thunderclouds. This, I'd say, is where the game can start being a bit, not hard, but where avoiding enemy attacks starts to become a bit of a task just due to the limited space you have on the screen compared to Kid Dracula's sprite. Particularly these witch enemies, if you progress too far on the screen, it's very easy for you to get hit by their little bomb drops and not have a real way to avoid them unless you take them out ahead of time. With that said, this is also one of the two outright gimmicked stages in the game, I'd say, as once we jump on these platforms, we're suddenly in a roller coaster stage. The rest of the stage, barring the boss fight, is on these as they go along a track, and we have to avoid a lot of enemies while doing so, including Gamera. For some reason, they just made a Gamera enemy, and I don't know why. I appreciate it because I like the Gamera movies. They're just Godzilla but stupider, but why? My best advice here is to just duck while on the front of the roller coaster and pray. Because at that point, you can avoid most enemy attacks. The only thing you'll really need to avoid, it for a while at least, is jumping over any of the Gameras that come your way. And maybe move out of the way of the lightning bolts. Some of these, I want to call them Oni, but I don't think that's technically correct. Anything they throw at you. I think Raijin might be what they're called. Also, even though I don't outright destroy them until I think like the third one, any of the UFOs you see here do count as enemies, so if you want to try and grab a quick coin, you can, because this is probably one of the lowest coin scoring stages in the game, just due to how it's, you really can't go and grab anything. I believe anytime you see a little platform like that, what it's supposed to be is a checkpoint, hence why the screen kind of halts for a second. But now we're limited to just the one platform, and you have to jump or bat transformation around to avoid attacks in the case you just don't feel like face tanking them like I do. Knockback in this game is weird compared to most games of the type, or even most Castlevania games, as there's basically no knockback. You get knocked back like maybe 2 pixels at the most. But what is knockbacky about it is the amount of time you are unable to move after you get hit. There's a good, maybe even second, where you just can't do anything. You have to hope that you don't fall off at that point or get hit by something else. Also, make sure you jump there, because otherwise, well, you're gonna die. I've never liked design like that. It always comes across as noob trappy. The minecart stages in Sonic 4, I think, are guilty of very much the same thing. But thankfully, at this point, we've made it to the boss fight. The boss fight is chicken. There's not even a special name, it's just a chicken. I recommend using the homing attack for this, as well you can hit the boss fight with the standard charge shot. It's a bit iffy to do so. The only attack this thing has is moving left and right, and every now and then I think it might be proximity or timer based, spawning out 2 baby chickens that you can potentially farm for money in the case you want to attack them as well. Once we get to phase 2, things get both more and less complicated. I think just due to the suddenness of this boss fight, alongside the limited platforming opportunities you have in this stage, this is not only probably my least favorite stage in the game, but also, well, I wouldn't say it's one of the hardest, but definitely one of the easiest to take damage in that you feel like you can't exactly avoid. There's only maybe one instance in this game I think is worse at that, and that's the final boss. Because, I don't like the final boss in this game, but more on that next part. Spoiler warning, next part's the finale, if you won't be able to tell by the fact it says finale in the title. Phase 2 of this boss fight is an egg. It doesn't have much HP, it bounces left and right. This is all the egg does, because it is an egg, and therefore cannot do much. And then you get phase 3, which is just a chicken you can take out in one shot. Stage 3 is annoying, but thankfully it's also, I feel like, the worst stage in the game in terms of quality. And for doing that stage, we get the upside down ability, which works quite a bit similarly to the bat. You charge up your shot, you switch to it, and when you use it, you fly up to the ceiling. You can cancel both this and the bat transformation, by the way, by, I believe, pressing the select button, and maybe even the B button in the case of the bat, but don't quote me on that. With that, though, this is going to be the last time I actively show you what I do during the minigame section, because more often than not, it's just me doing bat grab over and over again, because I still haven't shown off minigame D, jump and pop. I don't like rock, paper, scissors, but I don't like this one either. With here, you have to time your A and B button presses with the pogo jumping to pop balloons using the spiked helmet you're wearing. Darker balloons are nothing. You lose nothing, it's just a waste of time. The lighter balloons are the ones that have 1-ups. You pop a certain amount of those, and, well, you get the amount of 1-ups that are contained within. I don't think there's any that actively have higher increments. This is a very hard to control minigame, and I just don't feel like with the time you invest into it, you get a good return more often than not. There's a reason I think bat grab is the best one, followed by stabbing the skeleton. And then this and the rock, paper, scissors are just kind of in the bottom of a bottomless pit of uselessness. With that, now it's time for stage 4. This is, what's the name of the stage? The Ghost Pirate Ship, I think? Also, I just want to note, the upside down ability in the manual has one of the stupidest goddamn names. It's called Hangin' with the Bat Boys maneuver. I could tell someone had fun writing this manual, but I don't think they deserve to have this much fun. Especially with the final ability we get in the game at the end of stage 5, I believe. More on that later. With that, though, this stage, you'd figure based off the fact it's a ghost pirate ship, we're going to be dealing with a lot of bottomless pits, but no, we're actually going to be dealing with a decent amount of other types of hazards that can kill you. Namely, crushers and spikes. Spikes in this game are, at least when they're this big, I believe, supposed to be instant kill. However, smaller spikes are not sometimes. It also might just be the fact that the ones here outright crush you. You need to make sure you smartly use your upside down technique. Otherwise, well, you're not going to be able to make these jumps, and then you're just not going to beat the game. And let's be honest, if you can't beat the game, you're going to be a little bit sad on the inside. Like I am constantly. I don't know where that came from. Either way, something I forgot to mention last part, and that you don't see me do until one of the last stages in the game in this LP, is for a couple of the charge shots in the game, namely the starting one and one we get later on, is if you charge the button and then hold up, you can throw the attack upwards. That's how you're supposed to get rid of enemies like the fish that can get pretty close to you in stage 2 and things of that nature. Any bosses that might be above you, for instance, you can sit below Jason at the end of stage 2 and just fire shots into him during phase 3. I'll be real, I don't know exactly why I always forget you can do that. It's just not in my brain. It might just be the fact that I'm processing this game as a Castlevania approach to Mega Man, gameplay-wise at least, and barring a few instances, namely whenever bass was playable, you can't shoot up in Mega Man, and therefore that is not something I often think to try out. On the other hand, my inner Metroid screams at me because shooting up is how I avoid so many enemies. Also, these weird shield enemies, you can attack them while they're attacking, but while they're neutral, before you get right next to them, they won't actively be damageable, and that can be surprisingly hard to process for some reason. Either way, time for the boss of this stage. This is Witchy Wench. She will move left and right and throw her scythe at you. That is all she does. But for some reason, I find the arc of her scythe really hard to avoid, and I don't know why. I think it's based off where she is in proximity to you. Like, she'll tend to throw it more directly at you when she first faces a direction or something like that. I don't know why. I just have a lot of trouble both hitting this boss fight without homing and getting hit very easily by this boss fight. But we're not done with the stage yet. This is one of the few stages in the game that instead of having 2 separate phases for a boss fight, just has 2 boss fights, period. And the boss fight now is this robot that I don't think has a name. The part you need to hit is the head, and if you just use the upside down attack and stick relatively close to it, its punches can never hit you. This is a very easy boss fight, quite the opposite of Witchy Wench, obviously, so as long as you mash the B button, this thing will go down with very little effort, really. Honestly, this is an easier boss fight, I feel, than Jason. And now that's stage 4. We're already at the halfway point of the game. And for beating that, we get the next ability, which is the other one you can charge to throw upwards, the bomb. This allows you to destroy light gray blocks, specifically like the ones shown here, which only show up in maybe 2 stages, if even. Kid Dracula, you're doing well to get this far without being harmed. Yes, I have not lost any lives, period. What are you talking about? A message from the castle has arrived.
Master, you seem well. And much stronger, too. But you've still got a long way to go. From here on in, use the bat umbrella loved by your father. I've taken good care of it in your absence, so it may be of some use to you. I've just given it to Bat, so it should reach you any minute.
Gotta love small character sizes in text boxes. The Bat Umbrella is the one defensive item in the game. You can use it to protect yourself from projectiles coming from your side or above you if you duck. Also, I should note, the manual calls this the Umbrella Lugosi. I hate it, but I love it.
This is a very important umbrella for a count. Take care not to lose it. So long, Master. I shall await your safe return.
Long time no see, Kid Dracula. Last time you defeated me, but it won't be so easy this time. You will understand true fear when you meet Garamoth. You'll always be just a child.
Alright. With that, it's time for my other least favorite stage in the game, Stage 5. This stage doesn't have many enemies to it, but as you can tell, I did die here. This entire stage is one long vertical platforming segment. The bottom of the screen is a bottomless pit, and you have to wait for platforms to scroll on screen, and they scroll in at different speeds, making this a game of impatience and patience simultaneously. You can't wait too long, because otherwise you might miss some of the platforms. But you have to wait, because if you are too fast at climbing them, you're not going to have much of a chance to wait. You're just going to have to wait for them. There are minimal enemies in the stage. You got some robots who will be on some platforms you need to take out, and a couple of astronauts who will just peek out of the bottom of the screen to be like, hey, yo, I'm going to try and block your way, but as you can see, they don't stand much of a chance. This stage just feels very clunky in the game's platforming flow. It's not like this is a very skilled platformer. It's more so just that the control just does not agree with that low amount of leeway. Once you reach the top, the only non-scrolling part of the stage happens where you need to take out a lot of UFOs, making this great for getting coins, especially if the UFOs drop out. I think some of the transfusion enemies is what they're called, but it's not much of a challenge as you would expect. Once you defeat him, though, the boss comes out, and it's Garamoth, but things are obviously looking a little bit off, considering he has a lightsaber that can fire a laser beam. The main attacks this man has is to walk towards you, jump to the opposite side of the screen, whichever side that might be, and then fire his sword laser beam, in which case he loops. The only thing I think that can easily damage him is the bat attack, so I just recommend equipping that and charging it up. Otherwise, this boss, not too hard, honestly. At least for Phase 1. Phase 2 can be a bit of a mess just in terms of trying to hit the hitbox, but that's not for another 10 seconds. Here's Phase 2. Obviously, this isn't actually Garamoth/Galamoth, it's a guy in a robot suit. The main pattern it takes is to peek out, go back in, walk towards you, jump back, throw 3 bombs, walk towards you, and jump back, and from there repeat from phase 1. Very simple fight, but since it has such a limited time you can hit it, it can be a bit annoying if you miss your shots because it'll just make it drag on more and more. The best way to dodge the mines it throws as well, I guess they're more so bombs than mines, is to just jump straight up because the explosion, I believe, doesn't linger long enough for you to worry about landing back into it. Or no, it does. I'm just flat out wrong. I forget how you dodge that attack then. It's not a very hard boss, but if you get hit enough early on during the Galamoth fight, it's very easy to take some cheap hits here and then just end up having to take a death. Which describes a lot of the bosses in this game, and I have to wonder how much that is because they increase the HP value of the bosses in the US version. Afterwards, another enemy just drops out and you shoot it once for a coin that makes up 20 coins instead. And interestingly enough, for some reason it has a Bisumaru from Goemon on it, and I don't get why, but okay. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 3, we're going to go finish off the game. See you guys then.